So basically, I wanted to talk about 3 important steps to success for den leaders. So the very first step to success is get them registered as den leaders. Okay, so when you have those volunteers come in and they've committed to being a den leader, you can register them such. If you have somebody who's already been with the pack and was not a den leader before, it's super easy to make them a den leader, because all we need to do is a position code change for them. My recommendation is we do not wait for rechartering, because then their code may not become effective as late as March. We try to get them in January, but sometimes it takes us 60 days to get everything settled in the system. So if you have somebody, maybe they were a Scout or Reserve, maybe they were a Tiger partner last year, they've committed to being a den leader, assuming they are already registered with the pack, and again, you can check that on Member Manager. And again, those Tiger and Lion partners, those are not registered adults, right? So they're going to need to fill in an adult application and do the appropriate background checks, and we can get them in as den leaders. So hint number 1 is make sure your den leaders are actually registered as den leaders. When you do that, what that does is that unlocks a whole bunch of tools in Scoutbook. So what's important is this login as a den leader opens up what's called the den leader experience in My.Scouting. What the den leader experience does is it asks you a couple of questions. What rank are you working on? What days do you meet? How often do you meet? And it basically creates a schedule in order to get through all of the advancement in order to earn, for instance, your bear rank, your Weebelo rank, your Arrow of Light, or whatever. Then you can manipulate that schedule, and once it's in the app, if you follow that schedule, meeting 2, you were going to do this belt loop and you got it done. You can actually take attendance on your phone, and Scoutbook will say, hey, did everybody earn this belt loop? You say yes, and it automatically records all of that advancement. So I really, really encourage you, especially for your new den leaders, to get them registered and get them working on this den leader experience. There are some wonderful training videos out there on the den leader experience that I'm going to show you here in just a minute. I see a question in the chat, and Juan is asking, hey, do you mean having them fill out a paper application? So Juan, it depends. If they're brand new and they have not been registered in Scouting, they can register as a den leader right from that online registration, because the Chartered Org rep, who's the person who approves all of those adult applications, can assign that position code to them. But you are correct, if they've had a different position, so they're registered with the pack, but now they're becoming den leaders, we need that paper application. You send it to me, I check it, I get it to the council registrar, and then I let you know when that application has been processed. So before I move on, does anybody else have any questions? Does the advancement automatically update to BSA? Oh, great question, guys. So yes, if you're using, so essentially there's Scoutbook and there's Internet Advancement, right? Some people kind of made the leap to Internet Advancement. For Cub Scout packs, what I recommend is that you just use Scoutbook. You could use Internet Advancement, but it's a different interface, and I've got to train you differently. So if you use the Scoutbook interface and you're using it correctly, that will automatically sync to the great BSA database in the sky, which is called Scoutnet, and everything is there. If you're in Packmaster, you're going to have to upload. It's not always guaranteed. And then, you know, if you call your unit commissioner and you're like, hey, I'm having a problem with my Arrows of Light getting recorded, we can't help you because you can't share that with us. If you're using Scoutbook, you can share your Scoutbook with your commissioner. Many of my packs have shared with me, and I can look right at their right at what they're looking at and go, oh, look, it's the approve button that you missed there. Great questions. Any other questions about that? Okay, so what I'd like to cover next is all of the fantastic resources now on scouting.org specifically meant to help your den leaders get oriented and understand, what's this job I just signed up for and what do I do? So here, and most of these den leader resources now, if there's a video, often it's like 2 or 3 minutes. This particular one, how to run a den meeting, under 5 minutes. You probably can't see that little tiny print. It says 4 minutes, 38 seconds. It gives you an overview on this page. So here, we'll drill down a little later to these resources. It's going to talk about how to use a den chief, how to appoint a denner, right? So that den chief is that scout from perhaps a local troop that helps. Your denner is a youth from your den, right? And then all of these publications that are really handy to have. So let's see, I'm going to pick on the bears right now because I love their resources in here. Here we go. We start with, tell me about the rank. And again, this is about a 3.5 minute video on just what are we going to do this year. It's got some examples of the handbooks. Wow, look, welcome new den leader. So here's like the really quick, what do you need to do to get started? What are we going to hand out to our new families? It's got an introduction to the guide to safe scouting. And here we are, the den leader experience. So again, if your den leaders are not registered as den leaders, so some of you may be cub masters that also serve as a den leader. You won't be able to get the den leader experience. You're going to need an assistant den leader to access this tool for you. And if you follow these links there, again, to get into the den leader experience and figure out how to use it, it's really a fairly fast startup if you're not having to unlearn a different method. One of the things I like the best about the den leaders experience is as you're going through the different belt loops and whatnot in order to achieve this rank, when the scouts finish a belt loop, for instance, their parents are going to get an email, an automatically generated email that says, hey, congratulations, Chloe just earned, I don't know, pick a belt loop. There's Tigers in the Jungle or something, right? And as part of that belt loop, Chloe learned self-reliance, respect for nature, and I don't know, think of another, cooperation, right? So it helps parents connect the scouting program and those fun little doodads that their Cub Scouts earn with real honest-to-goodness skills that are going to grow with their child and help their child mature. So, Jeff, have you got any tips on onboarding den leaders and helping them not be overwhelmed by their job?
Just as long as they know that all the resources that are available, the den leader guides are a great resource. They're actually, even if you don't have an opportunity to get over to the scout shop and buy a hard copy of it, they're actually in the, if you go into the den leader experience on Scout Book, it's actually right there. The PDF is right there. You could just open that up and look right at it. And if you want, I can share my screen. Nancy already showed you to get into the den leader experience here in Scout Book. Normally, instead of the regular login, which a lot of folks normally do, and it would be login as den leader. And once you do that, it gets you right here into this kind of homepage area. The Cub Scout Songbook is right here. And this is great for people like me that bought the actual hard copy of the songbook, and I'm looking at like, okay, I know the words, but how does the song go? What's actually really neat here is it actually will play every song. Found an honest man. Oh, okay. You get the idea. So, definitely a lot of really cool stuff here. What else? And the den leader guide is right here as well. So I just happened to pick it for Weeblos, but I mean, it's right there. So, And this is a lifeblood for any new den leader that you've got coming into your unit. What I always do with my incoming den leaders is I always make sure that I really stress to them, you don't have to try to figure all this out on your own. Uh, the guide is right there. I mean, all you have to do is turn to the page for the adventure that you want to lead, and it lays out the meeting step by step. It's right there. So it's a great way to allay any fears that, if you're trying to hook in that new potential den leader and they're going, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Here's the book. It shows you right there how to do it. Even with the new den leader experience here, it actually, you can set it up. It will pretty much lay out your entire meeting schedule for you, adventure by adventure.
Yeah, and Jeff, we had a great question. Can someone other than a den leader plan a den meeting? Now, I don't know about you, but when I was a den leader, absolutely, especially as I had a boy den, because that's all we had back then. We would ask parents to basically sponsor different meetings. And in those days, again, we were using the paper den leader guide, but basically we handed out meetings at our first parent orientation, and we're going to have parents take every third meeting of the month or whatever. And again, because the checklist is so easy, it really empowered those parents to be able to pitch in. Now, of course, as den leaders, we always had the backup. One of our dads was a paramedic. So if he volunteered to run a meeting, maybe he might get a call and not show up. So we always had, something in our back pocket. But as long as your two registered adults are there providing that adequate supervision as required by YPT, having guest speakers, guest helpers, sharing the load is a fantastic idea, right? Many hands make light work, and it gives everybody ownership.
Yeah, but definitely for your new den leaders, definitely make sure that encourage them to share the load. Don't try to take everything on by yourself. My first few years as a den leader, I made that mistake. I pretty much kind of took on everything, which is kind of a trait that I have anyway. But I wised up in later years, and I had a really great assistant den leader, and I just finally said, Brian, you do some of this stuff.
Well, Jeff, we have a pretty good group here, so I wonder if anybody has best practices they want to share, or maybe even a challenge they're facing and would like the group's opinion or input on that.
I did put together a small packet that just have as a supplemental to the handbook for the parents. I don't know if this was a little bit of an idea kind of taken from the Cub Scout day camp idea of putting together a packet and just trying to put together a supplemental of what we needed. So a little bit of table of contents, try to put it by order of events here. And so put together a notional schedule here. So basically this one will close so that we'll hit all the minimum requirements. Basically to supplement so that we can complete what we need to complete. Put some general meeting notes there, just to, kind of expectations, things that we pretty much go over. One of the things that I asked them to do was I asked them to record a video of them doing the opening ceremony. That way everyone could follow along and everyone can kind of get a little bit of practice as opposed to stage frights on Zoom or looking in there too much. Tried to put in details here about how we keep afloat for parents. We were talking earlier about rotating instructors. So have this information here, which ties back into the previous page where we had the schedule, looking for, okay, which family is responsible for it, as well as the pamphlet exercise, the do-at homes, and then also this is Jen's suggestion, do the protect yourself rules in place of the cyber chip, because it's a lot easier to get it done in a group than it is to hope people will do it at home. A lot more difficult to help people. So put together the script for the video for them to record. So if they have basically, so it's easier and consolidated. So you kind of start from top to bottom, and that's the end of your video. Found some online for actually folding the flag because some of the details are a little bit difficult. Also found a YouTube video that shows a little bit more of the fine details because all of a sudden you get the triangles and then it just ends up perfect, which is never the case. There's always quite a bit of dressing that's required to actually make that happen. But then it also depends on how your flag ends up as to how exactly you're going to stuff that to make it look pretty. But the video covers that. Case is one of the things that is a local service project, so I figured that food drive would be a lot easier for social distancing, so we can still still have a discussion, still contribute, and that way it's something that can be part of the discussion. As hey, well, what would we want to get other people to help them out? My plate thing, this is going to be kind of a cut and paste where they choose their foods, put it on the plate. Recipe card, they're going to have to figure out their own recipe and put the ingredients as part of the discussion. Map of El Segundo, also included in the packet, they've got a 6-inch ruler. And what they can do is they've got to map out a 1 mile hike, and you've got the scale right there, so we can kind of discuss that a little bit. Coloring sheet for earthquake preparedness. Appropriate here. You got to make sure to cover that cough. Basic disaster supply kits, and then then songs because I figured that this way with the wolf year, it's kind of if you look at everything, it's kind of gauging towards putting together a campfire program. So this way we can get some songs going together and get them familiar and confident. Even though on Zoom it's not as fun to try to sing together. You unintentionally sing in rounds without trying. So got that one. Boom Chicka Boom. Some of the found some other ones online that I figured it'd be fun to have some YouTube links to. Jellyfish, this was kind of a fun one. I figured just try to get them up out of their chair, moving around, so just something that's silly. The Moose song, the Penguin song, and Guadaliacha. So I actually found it online. I know that this is one of Jen's favorites, and I'm not coordinated enough to actually catch up with all of this as it's happening. It leads to a lot of laughter, but a little bit of a cheat here so we can see what it actually is that we're supposed to be trying to do. Yeah. Jeff has it down, but I'll also stop talking, and I'll put the links over in the chat right now.
Perfect.
And people
all right.
can take a look.
Steve Escalante from 773. Any tips, tricks, techniques, or challenges you want help with?
Hey, Nancy. Hey, everyone. I found really leaning on PowerPoint for my Weeblos Den really worked out when we were doing our last couple of required adventures during the spring to summer transition. Again, using the Den Leader Guide as kind of our map to structure the meeting more frequently, shooting for about maybe 30 minutes of content, and doing breaking an adventure down to like maybe 3 or 4 meetings in a row. That way you've got enough time to kind of let the instructions soak in, and also allow for a little bit of slop time so you can have the kids get a little bit of social interaction. It worked out pretty well. One of the adventures, though, that I can recommend for any of the Weeblos Den leaders out there that everyone had a lot of fun doing, and especially in this distanced in this distance setting was the Weeblos movie making adventure. The kids absolutely just dove into it, ate it up, kept them occupied for weeks on weeks. We were sharing the different movies that the kids were coming up with, and I think it was also, it was really good for the parents because a lot of them weren't comfortable getting in front of the camera, so they all kind of defaulted to doing stop motion videos, which will keep a kid occupied for hours on end in his room, sitting there animating the little Legos. So, but yeah, back to just being prepared for putting in the time and getting prepared for those meetings, getting the slides out ahead of time, emailed out to your parents so that if they can't attend, they can at least review the material with the scout and then catch up at the next meeting. But trying to program in a lot of flexibility while we're doing this all distanced.
Great, thanks. And last month, the folks who joined us last month, Brad, if I remember, you're a teacher, right? And you had some great tips and talking about how to make, if you're having to Zoom, right, which it sounds like we'll be doing for a while, making sure you're shaking it up and making sure something for the scouts to do, right?
Yeah, something to interact, whether it's a social interaction or something for them to be doing on a piece of paper or a craft or something they could write, draw, show on the camera. The social interactions are really key. I think that's one of our really big selling points right now is giving these kids an opportunity to socialize. It's really easy as an adult to get into lecture mode and start talking and then forget about the kids and assume they're all listening. And just planning on having those opportunities to get them to talk and to chat and to be silly and to respond to things and to ask questions and to try things out. I think that's what makes these meetings fun for the kids and what really makes the program fun for the kids.
All right, Juan, voice of experience. You've been doing Cub Scouting now, I don't even know how many years. Tips, tricks, things you need help with? How's it going over there in 948?
Things are going well, thank you. Actually, I've been enjoying hearing a lot of the tips here actually on Zoom because that's really going to be our major challenge this year. Our major challenge, honestly, was kind of convincing some of those lion parents that we had last year and having them continue to tiger. I think we've gotten them there, but I'm going to share some of these tips as well that you guys have been sharing here, and to putting the plan together, and as well as with using the den leader. We did merge finally over to Scoutbook. Last year was our kind of first year that we were using it as a whole, and that has really helped. So yeah, it was a little painful to start off with, but I think now that we're there and now that they see the benefit of just putting everything in and then being able to get all the rewards and everything, we're going to have to get creative this year. Especially maybe with drive-bys or whatever to get the awards to the kids and things like that. But with the restrictions, that we saw in place, I think we're going to have to adhere to Zoom meetings, especially for the young kids, because it's going to be very hard. Especially a lot of them have siblings, and keeping those separate cohorts is going to be very challenging.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a lot of feedback that doorbell ditching is working great. That's what my troop, right? My son is 19 now. It's been a while since I've been in Cub Scouting. So the packs in the district are telling me, and in fact, our own troop advancement chair, before we have a court of honor, we're still doing the little baggies just like we used to, right? That normally would be on the card table and be handing out at the court of honor. But God bless her, she and her co-chair, and our troop has a huge, our troop spans from San Pedro to Hermosa Beach. So often a troop's radius is larger than a pack's radius. But those ladies doorbell ditched the night before.
Wow.
And the scouts are so excited. I mean, they open the door and there's a baggie with their badges and stuff. And and you think, we have teenagers, they're a little jaded, but they're pretty excited to get doorbell ditched.
Yeah, we were doing our awards and stuff, and we would compile everything and leave it in their mailbox or their doorstep or whatever. And then once we knew everybody had them, we had our reg advancement ceremonies. And I just did it den by den. I didn't run an entire. I didn't run it at a pack level because trying to organize something Zoom at a pack level that can get quite challenging. I think having
Yeah.
that small group environment at the den level for these virtual meetings, I think runs a whole lot better. And just as was mentioned a little bit earlier, even giving them just a little bit of time at the end of the meeting just to chit chat and just socialize. Sometimes you might have to disable the chat feature on Zoom, but if they're just still able to see each other and talk. I mean, the concept that a lot of people bring up of Zoom burnout, I mean, I think if you handle it right, I think you can counter that.
When we're bringing on, to kind of sum up, right? When we're bringing on new den leaders, one of the trickiest things is not to overwhelm them, right? Because, and that's what I tend to do, because I'm a reader and I love wading through stuff and researching. And now I think we talked about it last month. Tons of resources on the council website. You just click that scouting at home button, and it's now almost gotten to the point, it's incredibly rich in lots of materials there. But oh my goodness, if you were a new den leader and I handed you that scouting at home guide, which now probably has, oh gosh, we're probably not at 1,000 links yet, but we're probably, several hundred. I think I would be incredibly overwhelmed. So I think it's sometimes those of us experienced scouters in our enthusiasm, like, oh, and there's this stuff here and there's this stuff there. It can get really, really overwhelming really fast. So I think just going back to that den leader experience, pulling out the checklist, do this, this, and move. And then once den leaders have, probably a month or two under their belt, they'll start gaining confidence. And after their scouts earn that first couple of belt loops, man, that's a charge. When you see a young cub's face light up when he or she gets his or her first belt loop or a really fun belt loop, that's worth $1 million, right? That's why we're all here.